Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. Prime Minister Donald Tusk has announced that Deputy Development Minister Waldemar Surrogacy has been fired. The reason is his absence during the vote on the pro-abortion bill. This comes despite the fact that he was part of a delegation on a previously scheduled trip abroad. The vulgar attacks on the PSL and the leader of the People's Party, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, by pro-abortion activists linked to the left or the Civic Coalition also failed to sway the Prime Minister. They vandalised MPs' offices and carried out vulgar attacks. Groups linked to the left and the Civic Coalition have targeted the Polish People's Party, PSL. As we know, the most important values for the PSL are seats, so there is a simple way to restore the PSL's vote together with the governing coalition. One wrong vote, they lose one deputy minister, one director of some fund, one agency. After 3, they will straighten themselves out, I assure you, Mr. Prime Minister. In Parliament, Marta Lempart and a clear message. Not a word to condemn such behaviour. Not a word of support for PSL either. The left and the Civic Coalition are very lenient towards Marta Lempart. What do you think? Happenings. Well, artists can do all sorts of things, but they shouldn't do it in the Parliament. Thank you very much. And do you agree with these slogans or not really? To call Lempart an artist is an exaggeration, but when it comes to humiliating Kosiniak-Kamysz, anything goes. Miss Marta Lempart is an activist. Her actions are known. They are mostly effective. She also has her own style of action, which is of an activist nature. She obviously supports solutions that are supported by the left. Do you subscribe to this slogan she has announced? We subscribe to what we are going to say today, together with the woman in front of Parliament. A closer coalition partner of the PSL, Third Way, Poland 2050, defends Kosiniak-Kamysz on the one hand. It's good that such people often stand for election, but Mrs. Marta never got anywhere, and I think she won't. But on the other hand, they mock him too. I will put it this way, don't mess with Vladek. The leader of the People's Party is not laughing. Tolerance, freedom, understanding other people's views. I think these are slogans very close to the left, but they cannot be interpreted in a one-sided way. If you have my views, everyone should agree with them. If you have other views, you have no right to have them. I disagree with such one-directional tolerance. In the parliamentary corridors of the Polish People's Party, MPs are growing increasingly tired of being ridiculed by the other coalition partners. Hence the idea proposed by Przemysław Wipler of the Confederation that the PSL should form its own government. It would certainly be a better government than the government in which Donald Tusk is Prime Minister and in which there are radical leftist politicians in the government. It would be a much better government. It would certainly win a constructive vote of no confidence, and then we would have a normal democracy in which every vote, every action, every personnel decision, every law would have to win a majority for these actions, which might be easier than some people think. Law and Justice does not rule out supporting such a solution. If there is a chance that this bad government will end, we are of course in favour of such a solution, so that those who govern badly will be removed from office. I have always believed that it is in the interests of the PSL to form a parliamentary majority with law and justice, but it is clear that there is a willing subservience to Donald Tusk, which saddens me deeply. We can see this subservience clearly. Kosiniak-Kamysz does not want to be Prime Minister and decide the fate of Poland. He prefers to be under Tusk's boot and does not even think about his own government. The Confederation is proposing a new government led by the PSL. How do you support this idea? We're in the coalition that we agreed on. That is what the voters decided. That is what we clearly stated before the election. So our position here is clear. And voters are increasingly aware that the Third Way has turned into a third leg. For example, the health levy before the local government elections. The issue of the health levy is whether or not to be in a coalition. Our position is very firm and very clear. Not so firm today. We are not going to take the risk that another coalition might emerge. Then it will succeed or not. In this coalition, it will work. At this point, one thing has certainly succeeded. Tusk has marginalised his coalition partners. Adrian Borecki, TV Republica. The head of the US Secret Service has resigned from her post. As she admitted earlier before a committee of the House of Representatives, the agency failed to live up to its solemn mission to protect the nation's leaders. At issue was the assassination attempt on Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. The director admitted that the assassination attempt on Trump was the biggest failure in decades of the service she led, and that she herself would like to know how it happened. The head of the Secret Service is the first person to testify in Congress in connection with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump.
The assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump on July 13th is the most significant operational failure of the Secret Service in decades.
Congressmen, Democrats and Republicans wanted to know, among other things, how it was possible for the assassin to get so close.
How can a 20-year-old with his father's AR-15 assault weapon climb onto a roof with a direct 150-yard line of sight to the speaker's podium?
We are 9 days out from this event, and I would like to know those answers as well.
Take a look at what happened.
On the 13th of July, during an election rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks fired shots at Donald Trump. He fired from the roof of a building near where Trump was speaking.
40 lat temu doszło do ataku na...
40 years ago, there was an attack on President Reagan. This is the second such situation. All this time, the services protecting the highest people in the American state were able to cope. Here there has been shameful negligence, and everyone wants hints that they did not get.
No i wszyscy chcą odpowiedzi, których nie dostali.
Interestingly, even before Trump's speech, the services spotted the shooter who measured the distance between the stage and the building. On top of that, the perpetrator of the attack, already on the roof, was spotted by rally attendees, and they pointed him out to the services.
And around on the ground, we're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on. You know, we're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. You know, he's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
What is inconceivable is that inside the building, where the shooter was on the roof, there was Secret Service securing the rally. They did not prevent the assassination attempt, even though this person, whose name he does not even want to mention, who tried to kill President Trump, had already been spotted about an hour before the assassination attempt. In the attack, Donald Trump was shot in the ear, but a volunteer firefighter was also killed and 2 people were wounded. The perpetrator was killed by snipers. Only after a bullet hit Trump did the Secret Service agents move him out of the danger zone.
I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency. We are fully cooperating with ongoing investigations. We must learn what happened, and I will move heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again.
The head of the Secret Service rejected accusations that she ignored requests from Republican staffers for increased security for Donald Trump on the 13th of July, and pointed out that her service was not obliged to check the roof from which the bomb was fired because the roof was outside the controllable area.
To, co było widać podczas tego przesłuchania.
During this hearing, there was a great fury of legislators, on the one hand Republicans, obvious, but also Democrats. And she says it will take 60 days to clarify this issue.
Mówi, że 60 dni zajmie wyjaśnienie tej sprawy.
Therefore, it is not surprising that during the hearing, many congressmen called for the head of the Secret Service to resign.
I will be joining the chairman in calling for the resignation of the director, just because I think that this relationship is irretrievable at this point, and I think that the director has lost the confidence of Congress.
It is a miracle President Trump wasn't killed. Corey Comparatore life is over because that damn shooter made it on the roof. And it wasn't the roof that was dangerous, it was the nut job on top of the roof. You know what else is dangerous? I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful. And you should be fired immediately and go back to Garden Doritos.
After the hearing before the House of Representatives, the head of the Secret Service did resign. The FBI director will appear before the commission on the attempted assassination of Donald Trump on Wednesday. Radosław Jankiewicz, TV Republica. The European Union wants to impose the right to surrogacy and the adoption of children by same-sex couples on member states. The EU's Justice and Home Affairs Council is preparing a draft regulation that compels European Union countries to accept each other's parentage laws, which means recognising that a child has 2 fathers or 2 mothers. Legal experts say that the regulation violates the Polish constitution. Meanwhile, Donald Tusk's government openly supports a document being prepared in Brussels.
Brussels elites are trying to normalize surrogacy and adoption by same-sex couples.
In December, the European Commission presented a draft regulation providing for the mutual recognition of parenthood in EU member states. This is now being discussed by the EU's Justice and Home Affairs Council. The purpose of this proposal is to strengthen the protection of children's fundamental and other rights in cross-border situations, including their rights to identity, non-discrimination, private and family life, and inheritance and maintenance in other member states, taking into account the best interests of the child as a primary consideration. We are dealing here with the siren song of Newspeak, which has nothing to do with the welfare of the child, with the protection of the child. Unfortunately, I have the impression that this new draft, accepted by the government of Prime Minister Donald Tusk, is least concerned with the welfare of the child. Experts say it clearly. The regulation contradicts the Polish constitution. It clearly contradicts the Polish constitution. It clearly contradicts the Polish legal system, and there is nothing to discuss about it. It is also contrary to the internal legal order of the European Union. The regulation would fundamentally change Polish law. What this regulation means is that two things would be de facto legalized throughout the European Union, namely the adoption of children for same-sex couples and surrogacy, or surrogate parenthood. In practice, this would mean that Poland would have to recognize a same-sex couple as the parents of a child, even though this is prohibited in Poland. Significantly, Krzysztof Śmieszek of the left, when he was Deputy Minister of Justice, commented on the EU document. 3. Position of the Republic of Poland. The draft regulation should be assessed positively. The government has not commented on the EU regulation, which means agreement with it, although in the new government, this consent is not there. Also, when it comes to the adoption of children by same-sex couples. This law, in my opinion, will not come into being in this term, and I am convinced that it won't, for the reason that, for this, you need a majority. I, personally, answering for myself, for Piotr Woźniak, parliamentarian, senator, I am also against adoption by homosexual couples. As much as possible, it is a way out for these people. So, do you support it? Yes, I completely support it. The Marshal of the Sejm, Szymon Hołownia, despite being a staunch advocate of civil unions, does not support such adoptions. My approval for the adoption of children by same-sex couples is not there. For me, this is an unacceptable topic. For the majority of my club, by the way, we have shown this in more than one vote. Meanwhile, the document proposed by Brussels may be a Trojan horse. Under the cloak of tolerance and mutual respect for the law, Poland and Poles may be forced to introduce into the legal order civil unions, same-sex marriages, adoption of children by them, or even surrogacy. I consider this to be nonsense. Should Poland agree to this? No, we should have our own opinion. I am a Pole. I live in Poland, and I don't care about European standards. As a woman, as a pedagogue and a teacher with many years of experience, I am tolerant, I am open-minded, but I do not give my consent to this. I think it will hurt the child. I, for one, am against such an idea, because I simply believe that the role models must be passed on by the father and by the mother of different sexes. Individual MPs' votes do not matter for the Polish Prime Minister. Officially, Donald Tusk's government accepts the EU ideas with approval.
Early today, 226 migrants disembarked in the Italian port of Livorno from rescue ship Geo Barents. Meanwhile, Doctors Without Borders were worried about migrants not having the needed protection from the Italian authorities.
Italy agreed a deal with Albania to set up the center in Giader and another in the seaside town of Shenzhen, 20 kilometers away, to host migrants rescued at sea by Italian boats while their asylum applications are processed.
So we know that these people are now going to be entering Italy, where they will have the chance to ask for asylum and get the protection and the medical care that they need. Of course, the worry for the future is what is going to happen with the externalization of the border and the externalization of border proceedings in Albania. It is, of course, a real concern that people are not going to be able to access the level of protection that they need.
Giorgia Meloni's government is forcing migrant rescue ships to dock further and further north along Italy's coastline, meaning long journeys that raise their operating costs and strain their ability to continue saving lives. The docking destinations policy forces NGO ships to request and head to a port without delay after each rescue, rather than continue looking for boats in distress. Captains breaching these rules risk fines of up to €50,000 and a 2-month impounding of their vessel. In cases of repeated violations, they risk permanent confiscation.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. And from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.